You're about to listen to a BBC podcast, and maybe it's one I had a hand in. I'm Tammy Walker, and I produce podcasts for the BBC. My role is to give new and diverse creators a voice with the opportunity to build a career. That's the thing I love about podcasts. You start with just a good idea, but then you have the space to see where it goes. And doing that at the BBC means we can really run with the best stories while developing the most unique audio talent. So if you like what you hear, why not check out the huge range of podcasts we've got on BBC Sounds?
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello there and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. I'm Liam McLeod, and as we record, the Premiership might be on its winter break, but to fill that yawning chasm in your life, we're publishing mid-season report cards for all 12 top-flight teams. Handy guides to tell you all you need to know about where they are and how they got there. And this episode is all about the side currently sitting at the bottom in 12th place, Livingston.
Oh, it's misjudged by Fish, and now it's Sangari. Sangari scores! What a sensational hit that is!
Goal! The breakthrough has arrived at Livingston, and you can tell by the noise in the main stand, it's gone to the home side, and it's the Lucas who's eventually tapped it in.
Clipped over towards Pittman. Oh, that's a lovely strike. Livingston back in it.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
Well, thank you for listening to the Scottish Football Podcast. Remember to subscribe if you can. I'm joined for today's Livingston special by the Queen of the South manager and former Livingston captain and assistant Marvin Bartley, and Livingston supporter Stuart Barrie, who joined us on the pre-season preview podcast. So we'll get to Stuart in just a moment. Firstly to Marvin, who, as I say, is in charge of Queen of the South these days. It's been a good reaction, hasn't it, from your players? Because I was a little bit concerned when I saw you having a pop at them after one of the games. I think you were talking about them being on the Xbox too much. But the reaction's been superb, hasn't it?
The reaction has been fantastic. And that's one of the things with football. You know, I'm with these players, 5-6 days a week. They know what they get from me, and I know what I'm getting from them. And if either of, side of that lets each other down, then it's not going to work. So, I know a few people kind of from the outside were thinking, oh, what's going on there? But when you have that trust with your players and they have that trust with you, I warned them about it. And as you said, they've reacted in the right way. So it shows that, it was correct. And to be a professional footballer, you have to live your life, as an elite athlete, not just when you're at training, but away from it. And people don't understand the importance of what you do away from it, how it can affect you on the pitch. But as I said, I've got a young group. It's not just about educating them on the pitch, it's about off the pitch as well. And their reaction has been fantastic. And I knew I'd get a reaction out of them because they knew that they were doing themselves a disservice. This podcast, though, is about Livingston. And Stuart, I remember you joining us on the preview podcast back in the summertime. You were pretty pessimistic about Livy's season. I dread to think how you're feeling about it now.
Nothing's changed. Still hoping for 11th, fearing 12th. It might seem pessimistic, but you've got to be realistic as a Livy fan. That's where we are. We've got less money than championship sides, and this year that's came home to roost. The miracles that Davies worked in the past have not been able to ignite this year, and some key performers just haven't turned up this season.
Lots to get into then with the guys, but firstly let's quickly remind ourselves of Livingston's season so far.
It's fired! Oh! What a brilliant goal that is! From Kieran Dowell. Rangers 4, Livingston 0. Kelly stepping up to take it left-footed. Goal, 2-0, Livingston. Bruce Anderson's there. Bruce Anderson scores! The Lions lead at Easter Road.
Hibs away, difficult games. So for that group of players, my staff, and including myself, I think we've got to take huge credit. I'm really, honestly, really proud.
Oh, it's a goal! It's a goal for St Mirren.
And Livingston, after a decent enough start, find themselves one behind.
Palmer takes the corner. Flicked in! What a header! What a header from Liam Scales that was! Goal! For Hibs, and it's Martin Boyle. Incredible. Livingston have had all the pressure, but Hibs go 1-0 up.
At the start of the year, I'd done many an interview saying this is going to be the toughest season in the Premier League. I knew how hard it was going to be. I had the choice. I didn't need to be here. I chose to be here. I'm up for the fight. I'm up for the challenge.
Theo Bair. Oh, it's absolutely incredible. The Motherwell fans are delighted.
That first half of football was probably one of the worst I've seen since I've been in at Livingston. It was terrible.
What a finish from Lawrence Shanklin. 2-0 Hearts.
I'm an underdog. I'll keep fighting. I will keep swinging. In match day 38, And I believe the players showed they're behind me there today with that performance. But I genuinely still believe that we've got enough to stay in this division.
I'll be honest, it was a bit of a struggle for producer Chris to be able to find enough Livingston goals to put in that montage, but nevertheless, it has been an eventful season for all the wrong reasons in many ways. Let's quickly summarise then. Livy, currently bottom of the Premiership, 12th place, 12 points, 2 wins only, 6 draws, 13 defeats. They did top their League Cup group back in the summer before eventually losing to Rangers in the quarter-finals at Ibrox. The league campaign beginning pretty well. Goalless draw at home to Aberdeen. They saw the first month of the season out with a 3-2 victory at Hibernian. That was Hibs' only defeat at Easter Road up until the recent Derby defeat to Hearts. The next win though came at the start of October, beating Motherwell at Ammanvale. But since then they've gone 13 games without a victory, at one point going 7 matches without even scoring a goal, and then seeing out 2023, losing that massive game at Motherwell 3-1 at Fir Park, and then beginning the calendar year with defeat to Hearts. Stuart, firstly, I mean, when you look back at the first half of the campaign, it began relatively well, but obviously the roof's caved in and it looks bleak.
Yeah, a couple of key points were in that as well. I think we got off to the solid start, and then we had some injuries and some players just, I think Big Joel Nubley was out of sorts with the transfer talk. We missed Big Io Oberlai hugely, and some of the new players just didn't settle as we'd want them to. And the goals that we got from Joe, and in particular Bruce Anderson, just dried up. You know, we were playing okay and not winning games, which is always that bit of a worry, isn't it, that you can't do it. And then we stopped goal scoring, and then it became a big, millstone in your back, and it became longer and longer. And Livy fans, we had to go to YouTube to see what a goal looks like for a long time. It was a long time. The last time I seen a goal, the Halloween stuff wasn't even in the shops yet. It was a long time. So to see Big Curtis Guthrie scoring, and he's been a player that's been great this season, that's been great. And I just got a feeling, just to kind of end that run with Hearts there, that we turned the corner. We were great against Hearts. We were back to being Livy, and it's the most I've enjoyed a game all season, despite the defeat.
Back to being Livy, Stuart says, Marvin. I mean, you know what that takes to be Livingston and be the underdogs and punching above their weight. And unfortunately, it hasn't really happened for them this season. Can you put your finger on it? You know Davy well, you know the club well. Why do you think it's not clicked? Is it simply down to the fact that maybe teams like this just have a lifespan when it comes to being in the top flight?
No, I wouldn't put it down to teams, like Livingston having a lifespan in the top flight. It's always going to be difficult, as Stuart's touched on numerous occasions already. A club the size of Livingston, etc., and there's a few teams down the bottom probably with similar budgets. So you're all kind of scrapping for the same sort of players, and some windows go extremely well for you as clubs, and some don't go quite so well. In terms of the kind of underdog tag, when I've been in there as a captain and as an assistant manager, that wasn't something that we really kind of went about our business thinking. We went into every game knowing that if we gave 100%, we could walk off the pitch saying, we've done our job. And sometimes you're going to lose games of football when you play at your best. You go to Rangers, Celtic, Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, to name a few. If you play at your best and they play at their best, you're going to lose that game of football. But as Stuart said there, the fans just expect that kind of, that intensity from the players and the effort from the players, because as he said, the game he's enjoyed most this season was the defeat to Hearts, but that was in the manner that defeat came. You can take losing games of football as long as you leave it all out there. And, sometimes that's not down to the manager and the staff, that's down to you as an individual. As good as the motivators that I've had, and we're speaking about Livingston, it didn't matter. When I crossed that white line, it was personal pride for me as a professional footballer. And sometimes, I think players will hide behind other things. I'm not saying the Livingston players are doing that, but the experienced boys now need to take, the ball by the horn, so to speak, the second half of the season and really get themselves going, because they can survive and they will survive. I genuinely believe they will survive, but it's down to the players now.
Yeah, I mean, 6 points adrift at the bottom. They played 2 games more than 11th placed Ross County as well. So that's not helping. How can they turn this around, Stuart? Is it as simple as they need to get business done in January and hope that that's enough to kick them on?
Absolutely. We've got a couple of players signed early doors. We've also lost a couple of players. So that's maybe not a bad thing to kind of get the players in that want to be there. I think they can turn it around. I believe, I've got great faith in Davey. He's done great stuff to get us here. And I think keeping with him could be the key. Other clubs have changed their managers and got a boost out of it. I think keeping Davy reinstalling all the values that Marvin talked about hard work and effort and endeavour, I think that'll get us there. And the experienced players, I mean, Andrew Shinney's had a great season, and the guys like him will be able to lead us out of it.
Marvin, you know Davy better than any of us on this podcast today. I just wonder what's going through his mind right now, because generally it's all been positive for Livingston since they came up in 2018. This is the first real period of adversity that he's had to really go through as manager, and he sounds more and more downtrodden with every post-match interview he does, I think.
Yeah, and it's difficult losing games, Liam. You know, it's bad enough as a player, but as a manager, you know, you have sleepless, week in between the game. Sometimes as players, you come into training on the Monday and it's kind of out of your system once you do the post-match. But as a manager, that doesn't happen. You know, it's a crazy job, because you win a game of football, 15 minutes after that final whistle on a Saturday, it's forgotten about and you're preparing for the next game. But when you lose, you know, it's difficult. So like you said, there's been a lot of positivity around Livingston. You know, any manager, you find out more about yourself when you go on a losing run than you do a winning run. And Davey will be no different to that. He'll be second-guessing himself, as we do as managers, winning or losing. But he'll be looking at himself as well. You know, he won't just be looking at the players. You know, it's important for us as managers that when things do go wrong, can we change something? Sometimes you need to find a spark, and sometimes you just need to shake it up a little bit. Sometimes you just need a fresh face to hope that sparks something. You just get a fresh face into the building with new enthusiasm, and, you know, hopefully that can rub off on the rest of the players.
Well, let's talk personnel then at Livy, and we'll get to the manager's position perhaps a little bit later. But firstly, if you're looking for positives for Livingston this season, one for me personally, looking at the club and looking at the team, has been the run of games that Michael Devlin's got, because he's just the most horrendous injury problems over the last few years. He's a great guy, and he seems to have been able to kick on this season, get a run of matches. I know he's been out a couple of times, but he's a guy who can lead the club. And if Livingston are going to stay up this season, he's the kind of man who could be at the forefront of that, Stuart. I would have thought. You'll have watched him more than I have this season.
Two minds there. It comes with that pedigree. Agree, it's great to see a player getting games. However, it's not quite the same Devlin as we had last season, when Nicky was fantastic captain and big shoes to replace. Mm-hmm. And he's not had the luck, and he's not had the performances. I think he'll say that himself. I think there's been mistakes he's made that have been quite glaring, and he'll want to turn around the second half of the season. But if you're looking for somebody, for me, that I think's leading the park, it's James Penrice. He's coming in with man of the match performances week in, week out, and he's got a determination about him. He's a local lad, and I think James has really, really kicked on in the last couple of months, and he's a first name in the Thames sheet for me. And you've got Holty, who's all been really consistent all season, and Andrew Shinney, as I mentioned earlier on, he's been really good. When he's not playing, we really miss him for his experience and the way that he can control a football game or give away a foul at the right time. He's been good. And the other major surprise after seeing him last season is Curtis Guthrie's turned into be a great player. Goal-scoring machine with 2 goals. Last season wasn't his best season, and a lot of people were on his back, but he's proved us all wrong, and he's been a real fighter. He's been a real lion up front.
Yeah, and Marvin, it's not been a case of Livingston getting battered every single week. Sometimes when you see clubs sitting at the bottom of the table, they're taking 4s and 5s on a regular basis. Livingston have, there's a couple of heavier defeats in there, but generally speaking, it's been by the odd goal. And I guess that if they can try and tighten up at the back, find someone who's, and it sounds easy saying this, but find someone who can put the ball in the net a bit more often, then they stand a fighting chance of getting off the bottom of the table, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And like you said there, Liam, you have to draw positives from wherever you can. You know, when you go on losing runs or you're not picking up points, you have to draw positives from somewhere. And like you said, they're not being totally blown away by all teams in the league. So there'll be minor things within those games that if they can alter those, then it gives them a better chance of winning. Any good team, any team that's going to go on a run, you need a good platform. You know, that doesn't just mean from the defenders. That means, defending from the front. So it's probably going back to basics. And this week away for them in Turkey will help them reset with that. But David will be showing them all the stats, all the things that they need to improve. As you said, they're kind of halfway in the season now. They're 6 points adrift, but we have the fantastic split up here. So as long as you're, within 3 to 6 points of your closest rivals, you can turn that around really, really quickly. What is important is that gap doesn't grow. If that starts to go to 9 points, 10, 11 points, then all of a sudden confidence takes another battering. But I think, David will reset this week. He'll be showing them, as I said, all the positives he possibly can from the first half of the season and say, listen, we've got it within this dressing room, but we just need to go out there and execute it on a Saturday now.
The budget is so small, Stuart, that the signings, when they make them, they have to work. And when you look at the ones they brought in the summer, mentioned Michael Devlin earlier, Nottingham, Lloyd, Welch Hayes, Sangare, Lowell, Dan Mackay, who I thought came back to life at Cali Thistle last season. How many of them have worked?
Nearly all of them are in the subs bench or in the stands with me. I think that sums it all up, and it's the mainstays that we're relying on again.
And that's a huge issue, isn't it?
Yeah, but I have to say we've got a new Australian striker in. He only got 30 minutes against Hearts, and now look at our last Australian striker. He did okay. And this guy looks really good. He came on at 6 foot
He's Scottish. What are you talking about? He's Scottish.
If Steve Clark can get another diamond from Australia, I'll be happy. No, he's been good, and he's got really good control. He's 6'5", so we thought we were getting the old goalkeeper punt up front, but he's not. He's a technical footballer. He's fast, and he plays down the wing, so he surprised a lot of us, and I've got a lot of hope that he'll turn it around. He was good.
Just finally on this, Marvin, is Davy Martindale still the right man for Livingston to turn this ship round?
Yeah, 100%. And I believe so. As I said, I've worked under him as a player, captain, and then assistant manager. If anyone's going to turn it around, it's going to be him. He still has the self-belief. I know, like you're saying, in interviews post-match, sometimes he seems a bit down in the dumps, but he'll still believe in himself. And if he gets to the point where he doesn't believe he can turn it around, which I don't think will happen, then he'll be the first to admit that and walk away from the club, because he's been there for far too long to think that, he's a hindrance on that football club.
You're listening to the Scottish Football Podcast.
Well, finally, let's look ahead to the rest of the campaign. Of course, Scottish Cup tie is up first. We're all looking forward to the fourth round of the Scottish Cup. I know Marvin will be, although I don't think the draw was particularly kind, sending Queen of the South to Paisley. Livingston have got Wraith Rovers. Stuart, what's your expectations for the rest of the season for Livy? I mean, you mentioned 11th in the league. I mean, surely, most Livingston fans would settle for that right now, and a chance to stay up over a two-legged playoff against whoever comes through the championship playoffs system.
I would fancy our chances with that. I think we're going to do a reverse of what we've done previous seasons, where previous seasons we've got the points on the board and then forward towards the end. I think we'll charge on. So we only really need 9 wins or so to kind of really get us in a good position, and we're really capable of that. And I 100% believe we can do it. And I think the Wraith Rovers game will be interesting because there's a lot of ex-Livy there who know what playing for Livy's about, and they'll be given a lot of effort. So if we can turn that around and get a cup game to boost confidence and finances, that would be awesome too. But I think we can do it.
Just looking at over the previous 10 seasons, teams at the bottom of the league at the turn of the year. Ross County last season survived. 2021, St Johnstone survived. So over the last couple of seasons, the team at the bottom, when we get into the new year, has stayed up. Unfortunately, before that, you're looking at Hamilton, Hearts, Dundee, Ross County, Cali Thistle, Dundee United. They were all relegated, having finished bottom at the turn of the year. Ross County survived 2014. It's kind of a mixed bag. Do you think they'll stay up, Marvin, when you look at it, giving your honest opinion?
Yeah, I do. I think it will be through the playoffs, as Stuart said there. I think the important thing for Livingston is, like you talk about that Wraith Rovers game being a cup game. I think it's massive that they come back out of the winter break and all guns blazing, and they put a performance and they win. They win that game because confidence is going to be absolutely massive. What you don't want to do is kind of hit that reset button in the winter break, come out of it into the Scottish Cup game and then lose to a championship team. Because all of a sudden, everything that you've spoken about, all the positivity that you've tried to build up over those 2 weeks, it goes out the window. And then, things become a lot more difficult. As I said, that gap can't grow, the 6-point gap, it can't grow. I think, by the time they get to March, they want to probably be a little bit closer. But, dealing with the here and now, I think they have to beat Wraith Rovers, and the players will know that.
And after that Rovers Cup tie, Stuart, it's at home to Dundee and at home to Ross County in the next 2 league games. I mean, even before the turn of the month into February, those 2 are massive games, are they not?
Yeah, we said that going into the festive period as well, that we had a run of home games that we needed to win, and we got a couple of draws which were underwhelming. So it's not over, as they say to the fat lady sings. So I don't want to put pressure on the team too much and say they're must wins, but they're becoming must-wins.
Guys, thank you very much for joining us on the Scottish Football Podcast, Stuart and Marvin, and we wish Marvin all the best for the weekend and the rest of the season, as we do all the teams as well, as we do with Livingston. My oh my, what a job Davy Martindale has got on his hands there. Thanks for joining us on our Livy mid-season report card. Remember, we've got special episodes on every Premiership club available during this mini winter break, so make sure you follow and subscribe to the Scottish Football Podcast. Until the next time, bye-bye.
Just a quick word to say the Scotland Rugby Podcast is now available every Tuesday. Join me, Andy Burke and Tom English for everything you need to know about the world of Scottish rugby. Just head to BBC Sounds and subscribe to the Scotland Rugby Podcast.